Here we are at Wednesday. Let's get going. Okay, cool. So got spell checker basically working off camera. A couple of issues with it. The main one being an issue I ran into before with Tesseract, which is that we need these dictionaries to pass into Hunspell, the English dictionary files, and I put them in a folder here in source. Well, as part of the other Hunspell library stuff. Here, let me fix some of my setup here. Let me pull that over. There we go. So those files are here. I got to load them into Hunspell. But the thing is, when you deploy this to when it's running on Windows locally, which is what I'm doing with my test harness, those files are found in one place. And then when you deploy it to the VR headset, those files will be found in a different place. So I basically had to, write some logic, which I had done before for Tesseract for finding and loading that file. So when we're on VR, we actually have to copy it out of the APK file and put it somewhere. So that's one of those annoying things where if you've got files as part of your project that you want to load at runtime that are not, they're not like an image, let's say you have an image and you want it to load, then if you're going to run that as part of code, particularly like your C++ GD extension, let's say it's a file your GD extension needs, again, a dictionary file for a spell checker. Well, that will be in the APK file that's deployed to the VR headset, but it's going to be inside that file and you got to pull it out. So you've got to do some things like, check the file path. If it's not there, create the file path, then go to the source file, your destination, and then copy it out of where it is inside of the APK and put it locally so that you can access it. Only then can you then load it. So anyway, once I did that, I actually started getting finally logs that were saying hey, checking this word, which is not a good word, not a word. So here are the suggestions. So that's fine. Let's see here. So I no longer need the checking word. Let's remove that. Actually, let me put it in here. I'll just say not a word. And then we'll just get suggestions. And then this way I can debug through this and see what's reasonable, what's actually going to make sense. The goal today is the same as last time, so I'm going to try to finish off the spell checking logic. Now we shouldn't be blocked anymore. So now it's just a question of business logic. How do I want to use this thing? And then get that merged, and then move on to sound stuff. Start getting audio into the app in a meaningful way. Let me check myself here real quick. Cool. All right. So let me run this again. Oh, and one little interesting thing that's annoying is I need this here. Because I can't, it's not initializing. You'd think on ready. I mean, this has to be true, right? But yeah, when I run the logic, writing debug files, blah, blah, blah. Here, we do the construction here because spell checker is not a thing. So how is spell checker not a thing? It should have initialized up here. But it didn't. Is that because let's see here on main. I mean, that's the book text scanner. Is it game state that keeps it? So we do start the scanning service. Okay, maybe what I'll do, like, let's assume for a moment that dictionary access is not something I only need for OCR Manager. So let's move that to game state as well. We'll do on ready. Well, should be able to do that. And we'll set it to spellchecker.new. So now it's going to initialize on game state. And then an OCR manager will lose it. But now it'll be a game state thing. Don't know if I love that. But now it'll be game state.spellchecker. And now if I rerun, I shouldn't get that warning anymore. I should see initialization happen pretty high up. Yeah, see, there we go. So it gets constructed immediately. Interesting. So what's confusing to me here then is I know that OCR Manager... Well, where does OCR Manager get initialized? I mean, it seems like it's just a class. What about on ready? Where is that? So I know we connect this signal. On text scanned. Let's clear this out. So I know this works. I mean, where is the get page, right? Or get word, rather. Get OCR word. Because this is where I'm doing the spell checker logic. So get word is called from probably get line, right? And get line is called from add OCR chunk. Yeah, which is on text scanned. So this baffles me because I know for certain this signal gets connected. Unless maybe I don't need to do manual connection. Let's just do in ready for, because like, does this, like, when does this get called, I guess? Cannot open file. Does it make any sense? Let's run that again. And then for our logger, what do we have? In read instead of in ready. Okay, fine. Let's look at this stack here. And actually, it should be one of these types of lines. Huh. Does ready just not get called? All right, one thing we could do. We can redirect that output to output.debug. So we'll run the same script, and we're just going to redirect the output to a file. So that way I can search it. That'll take its sweet time. I can delete these. All right, that finished. And so then now we can do... Why do I have caps on? And now I can search for this. Not found. We found OCR processor, some OCR logs, starting OCR. I'm going to do... I'm going to run that. Let's do it again. And I'll search for this string. Just to make sure that I didn't accidentally miss it, or that... I mean, I'm 99.9% certain it's not there. Which means we just never call ready. So does that mean... I mean, we have a process function. And that definitely gets called. Very weird. So I could check that out. Never found. So we never call ready. Oh. That's why. Silly me. Of course it gets called. It's just not going to get called by the test suite. Because the test suite, I believe, is going to call it directly. We do create a new instance of OCR Manager here, though. And we call it directly. So maybe because of that, we skip these, like this and this doesn't happen. Okay. In either case, that solved the issue. Alright, let's just run it again, this time normal. So I think the problem's been solved. And I think I slightly understand a little nuance of the project and the engine. Spell checker is now auto-constructed, so we shouldn't have any problems there. And if we come down to here, I see no log statements about it not being in existence. So we can nuke this. So what do I do here? We have OTE. I think in this case, the text is supposed to be, to put it simply, of is, oh, yeesh. It made that a word. Or it said that's not a word because there's a apostrophe. All right, let me look at the docs for this thing also. Can I... Yeah, see, here's the Hunspell docs. Now I'm ready to just figure out what's the right way to use this thing. And I could probably come up here, read this. Main features. Blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't really provide any details. Code is probably just going to go right to GitHub. Bug is probably going to go to GitHub issues. Yeah. Releases. And then the about is itself. Joy. Let's see here. All right. Free browser, blah, 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 is designed for quick and high quality spell checking and correcting for languages with word level writing system, including languages with rich morphology. Character encoding. Codebase comes from, okay, features. So there's the dependencies, compiling, yep, all that. Do you not have any docs? Documentation. This is not correct. You're just going to send me here. Don't tell me the man page just spits out this, because that's definitely not true. But the thing is, I don't have it installed. So now, I mean, like I do, but I have it installed as a library, so I don't have access to the man page. Okay. All right, here's the Hunspell man page. Stem and analyze functions are similar to the suggest, but instead of suggestions, return stems and results of the morphological analysis. This extra word and its affixation will be the model of the requested forms of the first word. Huh? The extended stem and generate. Use the results. Description depends from dictionaries too. Okay. So we have our constructor, destructor, add dict, which is going to add a dictionary. Spell, suggest, analyze, stem, generate. I guess on the fly I can add words to it, looks like. Which could be interesting. So as we're reading, if I identify some other way that a word is actually correct. Right, like if we see the same word, if it's self-referencing. So for instance, do I have an example here? No, I don't have a great example here. But for like The Hobbit, if we're reading The Lord of the Rings or something, like a proper name of a person is probably going to come up as a bad spelling. But if I see that same word multiple times, then it's likely that we properly OCR'd it. Or if anything, we're basically adding it to an ignore list to say, like, just don't bother trying to treat it as a like a wrong word because we just don't know. It's probably a proper name, but could be anything. So, okay, we do have a little bit of usage docs here. Or without interface. Of an affix and dictionary file, for example. Got to download both. Examples. Where in the output star and plus mean correct accepted words. Huh? Doesn't make sense. Star and plus mean correct accepted words. So for star, nothing. Or example. Wait, what? Maybe, okay, examples is that, and then example. Or are we saying correct? This is correct, this is accepted. So this is a correct word, these are accepted words. Or is it, okay, you started like an interactive session then, and you typed example and hit star. You then maybe hit return, hit examples, and it said that it accepted it as the word example. Teached. Star is a dictionary stem, plus is a fixed form and following dictionary stem. Okay. And ampersand and pound mean bad, rejected. Star has suggestion, pound means not. Who the heck designed this CLI? So teach, ampersand teached. Suggestions are taught, teased, etc. Very bad gets a pound with 0 at the end. Okay, cool CLI. Stemming. Mice, mouse. So if we run mice, we get mice, st. Okay, fine. I was hoping to see in these examples, like, could you feed it like a sentence and it'll, you know, but that's kind of grammar then. It's not a grammar checker. Meme program. Example of spell checking, stemming, and morphology and analysis. Tools for dictionary development. All right, I'll go to my one standby though. I'll do GitHub search. And what I'll look up, I'll do Hunspell path start CPP. And I can do whoa, I did not click on that. What did it? That was weird. Pi Hunspell. Oh, interesting. Okay. Do you have better docs? Love that usage. Okay. Pip install. Symbolic link. Here we go. So analyze is going to give you, and stem are going to give you those things. Okay. Spooky is false, but you can add it and then it'll return true. You can remove it and then it'll go back to false. That's literally, this is literally all it can do. Fair enough. Okay, so I think that means I'm on my own. I mean, I could have done some sort of grammar checker, but I'm not going too far down this rabbit hole. So this is going to be... So I think in reality this is put. Because what do we have? Where's testing? Yeah, so in fact, if I come down here, oh wait, we do have, then what is this? Oh, because I'm confused. That's page 2. So we... Okay, well, that's a little weird. I don't know why. So it did start with to put it simply. Simply had a comma after it. Or is this maybe when we have low confidence? So simply had a comma, but this is after low confidence. Maybe. So we create a word. So for the line, we loop over them, and we add our, we add to our line. And then what do we do with the line? Line.getScore greater than 0. So as long as we have a good score, we append it. Oh, which probably explains why we throw away that word. Because it's probably on a line by itself. It's junk. So we are catching it here. So this is probably a word. This is probably not even a word. It's like an artifact on the page that it detected as maybe being a word. Okay. There are a couple things I can do. First off, let's remove punctuation during this check. So how would I do that? So in this case, we have our word. So one thing I'm going to do, it's hard for me to talk through all this. One thing I'm going to do is for here, we are missing dash. So I'm going to add that. And then the interesting thing about that is, actually, I'll turn this off too. So I'm actually curious. Actually, if I, yeah, so I'm not going to build. If I run skip and I run it all, let's just triple check that we get the same test report that we got before, which should be this one. So what, like a 78 basically? Because I think the score will actually go up slightly just by adding in the dash, because I've noticed a lot of dashes in the text. And that's probably a whitelist character I was missing for the allow list. All right, let that finish running. Working on left and right. Okay, so it should be on like the last test case. Okay, there we go. So 77.96 versus 99. 6.3 on the timing, sure. Left and right on the right-hand side got 98.1. Then we got the next best is 94.62. 92 point. Yeah, okay. So the scores are basically the same. If I do the dash in there and I build all, I wonder if that's going to boost the scores. Because I do know, like for instance, yeah, we got this dash here. Actually, there we go. I highlighted it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we've got a bunch of dashes through the text. So assuming the text comes out slightly better, that could move the scores by a little bit. I don't think it's going to be 1%, but it could. So that's one thing to improve scores. In which case, I'll immediately capture the results and drop them in the pull request so I know what the effect was. So I don't misattribute the boost in score to, say, spell checking if spell checking ended up doing nothing. All right, come on. There we go. Now if we run the whole test suite again. Let's wait for our first anecdotal evidence. So align frames got a 76.7. 76.7. Look at that. So it did go up. That's funny. So I wonder if we get like a quarter point out of all these. That's going to be so funny. Yeah, see, sales driven has a dash in it now. And we've got dashes at the ends of lines. 94.87. 94.87. Yep, so all the scores are going to go up. That's good to know. So I was missing some special characters, which it's a smart thing to do to tell it what your allow list is, because otherwise it'll put in like European currency symbols and like all sorts of stuff that you don't actually want. I mean, eventually, maybe, I don't know, maybe I have to allow all those characters. I could try going back to, I don't know, would be nice if instead of an allow list, they had a deny list. They might. In which case, instead of doing this, I could just slowly play whack-a-mole with the troublesome ones, like the special characters that keep popping up that don't belong, that really shouldn't be there. All right, where are we at? Yeah, so it did go up by a bit. So I'll leave a comment for that. So I'll do added to allow list for OCR. Improved scores a little bit. All right, and then I'll say, after adding call it Tesseract. And I'm just realizing the trash truck's outside and I did not put out the trash because it was raining. Why are these times so slow? It could be a fluke. Let's say scores went up 1/4% on average. All right, so that's 1/4% improvement. Which for right and left, that's our current winner, right? So instead of 98.1, 98.4. 92.4, well, on the left side, 92.47, 92.47. Okay, so that one didn't change. Maybe it doesn't have any dashes. 94.62, 94.88, 91.5 for good. Good had 91.5, 91.2. Okay, so it actually hurt good. And I think that's going to be the trade-off I'm going to have to live with. So the reality is by allowing more characters in, there's also the risk of failures. All right, it's fine. I think it's unavoidable. so now we're going to go back to our spell checking. I'm going to remove this. Did I not have a... Was it like OCR word is simple. Line, doesn't it have a check in here? Line text gets score. No, I think I removed some logic. Yeah, I think I had something here. Oh, get simple text. So if it's not an integer, and is valid identifier. What does that mean? A valid identifier may contain only letters, digits, and underscores. Got you. So this is my little hack. So I have what character.is valid ASCII identifier. All right, I'll test pulling this in since I know this is deprecated. So basically this is saying it's a letter only, get letters only. All right, so I'll do get simple text. Where am I using that, by the way? For the time of day check. Got you. Okay. So I'll do the cleaned word. I'll pull that out. And just say, like, look, we're going to do this every time anyway. We're going to do it for spell checking, but we're also going to do it for... See, I had done it as its own thing because I didn't want to do this for every single word, but now we are going to do it for every single word. So now, if not time of day, and cleaned word in. So I don't need the nested if anymore. So if we aren't currently updating the time of day, and our word is in time of day, then we use it. Fine. So I got a cleaned word. It could be a space, probably not. All right, let's try that. But I'm not, for the moment, going to replace, going to change what we do for our word. I'm going to leave it as is. Yeah, see, the problem with this is when I do get simple text, I may want to return an array and have the second element be like the characters it removed. But what if it removed them from the center? All right, well, one problem at a time. So if I run shaky again, we're going to have potentially a new issue now. Here we go. So this is garbage. I could set its suggestion to whatever. Da is bad. We could set that to whatever. Here's. Here, let me see. Yeah, here's is also not. See, I don't like that, because I would expect here is to be the more likely recommendation. I guess picking one based on Levenstein distance. Ugh, do you order the suggestions by Levenstein distance? Gross. That's, oh, me think here. See, in this case, we don't have the dash. But we got rid of the special characters. Darn. Okay. Let me think. Maybe let's not do that. Let me rethink this again. And again, we might be stuck in a situation where I can't use the spell checking. I may have to mothball this, but let me see if I can pull out an idea here. And I'll explain myself in a moment. So we have the word simply here, to put it simply. It's going to suggest simply. If I take that suggestion, I lose the comma. I could do some trickery. Let's say we just did some trickery and said, cool. You know, let's like do it. But like add the trailing comma back on. If it ends in a comma, let the comma through. See, we've got sales drive. Okay, let's see how it handles that. Okay, fine. If ends in comma, add comma. Like, take the suggestion. Or like to put it another way, like if we remove the comma, if that word is in the suggestion list, then keep it. Oh, okay. So I could do the check it vanilla, and then if I strip out special characters, because we already know what special characters we're going to allow. So spaces, commas, periods, question marks, etc. So those are the only ones that are going to be there anyway. So if we strip out the special characters and this word is in the list. But I mean, I guess that's the same as getting the cleaned word and using the clean word for checking. So you could use the clean word for checking, but then if it fails for suggestions, you pass the original word because you should have the extra context. Okay, fair enough. Of. So that's interesting because that tells me, see, now we're down to the word fatal. Oh, of drive. Okay, sorry, here we go. Really? There was a comma after of? Here, let me grab this. There. So at least I've got some reference close at hand. Let's go back up. All right, so simply we would want to keep the comma. Consequences, it was fine with, even though it should be lowercased. of shouldn't have a comma. So then what do? If we remove the comma from here, like we don't want to remove the comma from here, but we do want to remove it from here. And then drive, comma. In fact, in this case, it should be driven. That special character. And driven isn't in one of the suggestions. The sole goal. So this should be goal of. But it doesn't split it. Ah, God darn it. So far, this is feeling like not at all what I want. Like, this isn't actually going to help me. And I put the... Which is annoying, because I put in all this effort of putting a spell checker in. And now it's like, it's just not... It's not going to fix things. Because the issues I have are not spelling. Like, you know, you see, like, we've got mainstream... Ooh, I like how it does the double highlighting. This is nice. So we've got mainstream, market that. We've got market that. Well, what does it do with market that? I mean, it does recommend the dash. Did I not get any dashes? No, we did. Because we have cust dash down here. So it is using dashes again, finally. Maybe this one's just not a great example. This is shaky, right? How did shaky score? 93.12. .96. So shaky did go up in score. Doesn't seem like it really used the dashes where I thought it would, because why did not sales driven and market that? Now, here's one narrow case where it succeeded, which is the word to. So remove the 0. Okay. Do I have... What is WordPad? Do I not have a word processor? Hold on. Let me see here. See, I'm not logged into Google. Fine, let's use WordPad. You've got to have a word processor, right? Or like you've got to have spell checking, right? So if I plop this in here, okay, looks like it doesn't. I think it's got to be grammar checking. Okay, darn it. Well, that's an annoying lesson to learn. It's part of the same conversation. So I did ask it about grammar checking tools. So it's open source grammar spell style checker. Runs JVM. Gross. Darn it. So I immediately latched on and just said, hey, maybe I can just do spell checking. But I really think grammar checking has got to be the thing. Spell is older. All right, got everything working. But sadly, now I'm realizing that I really need grammar checking. Is there a C++ based grammar library or utility I can install? I think it's going to basically say no. Whole different animal than spell checking. No drop-in grammar checker. I don't believe you. Grammar checking in sapling. In what is sapling? Sapling.ai. AI writing assistant, blah, blah, blah. Gotta create an account. So you basically have an SDK or an API? An API. So you want me to just hit your API? No, thank you. Not gonna do that. Also, yeah, what is your pricing, by the way? Yeah, you're going to charge me a lot of money. Grammar checker in C++, a simple C++ util that loads an English word list into a custom hash table and checks each word in a hard-coded sentence for existence. That's not a grammar checker. And you probably haven't updated this in forever, right? 3 months ago. 6 commits. Right. What else did AI say? Unfortunately, there's no single drop-in grammar checker. Again, I'm going to give this a few more minutes of research, but I may have to just put this in a pull request and abandon it. Runs via server. You'll call it from C++ via via HTTP. Okay, well, one thing I could do is I hate that I'm going to ask this question, but what are the options in Godot 4.5 for creating a Java GD extension. Please tell me nothing. Please tell me it's not an option. Please no. Because I don't want to be doing Java. There is no first-class officially supported Java GD extension path in Godot 4.5, but you can build something akin to a Java plugin or by using community bindings. What GD extension is? Yeah. I mean, even if this is like a viable path, I'm not going to do it. Not right now, anyway. I would have to mothball that for later. So basically none. One thing I have been not wanting to do for this project, and in many ways I'm kind of wishing I had done it from day one, even though it kind of goes against some of the philosophy I had for this project, is spin up a server. Like if I had a server API, which I can easily do, I've done it a million times, I could do it pretty quickly, and I had API endpoints. One where you could pass it an image, like make a REST call with an image, and it would do OCR. Well, then I wouldn't need any of this GD extension stuff at all. I could do everything on a remote server. And then the same thing with this grammar checking. Could do it all on a remote server. It would actually give me a modicum of protection against somebody stealing this idea, this app. Because the problem is if I bake this all into an app that I release, somebody can unpack the APK and just take all the code, which is a problem in video games. By having an API, I mitigate that issue. It also means that I could do things like a grammar checker more easily because I'd have more options on a regular server. It might help with performance and relieving the load on the VR headset for the amount of work it needs to do. I still might need a GD extension, but it would just be a very lightweight one used for handling the background process of making those network calls. The problem with that is I didn't want to get into maintaining a server. Because then what happens when I take that server down one day? All of a sudden, everyone who bought the app stops working. And I really didn't want to do that to people. I wanted something that didn't require the internet. And I still want to do that. But this might be scoring one in the checkbox of, hey, maybe this should be a API call instead. In theory, it may actually be faster because you got the network call of sending an image over the network, but OCR, I could throw a beefy machine at it and it could be faster. I could optionally swap out tools, so if I really decided that like an AI tool would be better for OCR, I could swap that in or out. But that means the app requires internet, which I didn't want to do. I may jot this down somewhere as thoughts for myself. Or as a REST API. Yeah, local server request. I am not doing Gramformer. Transformer-based grammar correction. Built on top of GP2 to find interesting. Gramformer instead of it's a transformer used for grammar, so it's Gramformer. That's cute. 3 years old with no updates. Proof of concept. Deprecated. Was it ever maintained to begin with? All right, so cute, but yeah, I mean, so you did a bunch of commits in a couple of years ago, but you haven't maintained it. Very cool, though. Either way, there are Python-based fun ones. On edit distance and frequency, no syntax or agreement rules. Basic corrections. You know, that's true. Implement rule-based checks in C++, e.g. regex plus part of speech approximation. Custom rule writing. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could play whack-a-mole. I mean, I know OCR has like OCR specific issues that it runs into. Like, again, the capitalization of C here because it has trouble with capital and lowercase c, differentiating between the two. O's and zeros, capital O, lowercase o, zero, like it struggles with those things. So I could solve some of that. Where's my thing here? We have, what is it, market that? Where is that? The sole goal of the company during the stage of market that. I mean, okay, if I went naive here and I left my if I had my comma rule where I kept commas, then this is fine. That gets basically ignored. The of here would keep its comma. Sales drive instead of sales drive paren. But that would mean all parens would get lost. I would lose all parentheses. I mean, there's no parentheses in this text, but I mean, I could have just removed parens from the Tesseract rules or deprioritize them. If I marked it as slightly lower priority, I wonder if Tesseract would get this correct. and instead of the paren, give it something else. I think there is a mechanism for that. The goal of Fallout, that would fail. So again, like the question mark, I could keep that punctuation. Goal of the, well, company, but that's fine. This is no worse than anything else. Stage. During this stage, that would actually fix it properly. Beachhead inna. See, this wants to make it inna. And it never suggests, it wants to uppercase it. And it never wants to split it. Mark it that, I mean, it's supposed to be a dash. Unless I mess that up, but either way, like removing the dash is fine. So that's actually an improvement. So far, I think the score is 50-50 though. It's like it's not really improving or making it worse. JS, again, it wants to change that to dis. It shouldn't be. It should be is, but is way far down the list. This one's good. D's. Create a... Nah, there's no way it'll get that one right. All right, I'm not really seeing a good reason to keep it as is. It's not like actually making anything better. You know, before AI, this would have been a no option. I mean, I could have done it, but it would have been like a huge time investment. But now I could actually say, hey, look, I've got Tesseract OCR output. And, you know, OCR has common issues and mistakes that it makes. Can you create a rules engine that fixes them? And it would probably spit out a bunch of code, and there's probably some bugs in that code, but it probably would, you know, fix the capitalization problems. Fix, like, you know, it could fix, like, this, the two. It could fix some issues. I think the juice is not worth the squeeze, though, right now. Can you list for me resources for C++ based grammar checkers? Any and all libraries that exist that will check the grammar of a sentence in C++ code. Yeah, you think longer for your better answer. I'm surprised there's no C++ solution for this. I would think that there would be one for something as basic as a grammar checker. And by basic, I mean something people needed 20 years ago. It's a little shocking to me we don't have one. If I do mothball this, then I think the only solution really is to put this out on a server. Grammar checking is usually done by heavier rule ML systems written in other languages. Native C++C libraries, mostly spell and morphological tools. Hunspell, yep, already using it. New spell, modern memory safe C++ spell checker that supports Hunspell dictionaries. Huh. Well, now you're telling me about it. Okay. You can call from C++, server API based. Yeah, you already told me this. Grammarly. Not a drop-in library, blah, blah, blah. Ginger. Grammar API. Commercial Grammar API. Microsoft Spell, Bing Spell. Sapling. But the source is available if you want to self-host experiment. To implement grammar checking in C++. If you want to build a grammar checker, rules or ML, inside of C++, tree sitter, open source parsing, but tree sitter has grammars and can be used to parse structured text. Implement rule-based grammar checking yourself. Create grammars. Match patterns. Spacey. Models provide grammar and correction models, but are Python-centric. Run them as a microservice and call from C++. This gives you access to modern transformer-based grammar correction models. Yeah. So I'm going to say this works, but adds little value without grammar checking. There aren't really any C++ options for grammar. To do this properly, I probably would want to host a Python API and call it from the headset. You know, if I go this route, I'm not going to do this now. Oh, gross. So if I were to go this route, I think what I would probably do is, since the app does minimally work, and what I could do, I'm just taking some extra time to think about this strategically from how I want to design this app. You know, I want to avoid sunk cost. You know, kill your darlings, as they say. But since it does work, mostly work as is, one path I could take is like, look, continue to maintain the code I've got, but also then spin up an API and have a config setting in the app where like you decide what you want to use, and by default the API is enabled. And actually I don't even have to ask the user. I could just like call the API for now, and then if the API is not available, then we initialize the GD extensions. Ooh, that's nice. And then later I could always make that a user setting that like, hey, you can set it in your settings. And if you set it in your settings, then again, when the app starts up, we check two things. One, we check the user settings. If the user's disabled it, then, initialize as always. Otherwise, if they haven't turned it off explicitly, check the API for existence. If it's there, use it. If it fails at all or in any way, fall back. So I'm going to add this here. Hosted OCR. Well, not hosted let's call it hosted API. Yeah, I'll leave this at the bottom here. So my description is going to be the app works okay right now. There are some problems. So we've got no C++ based grammar checker. OCR is slow. OCR is resource heavy. Those are the main complaints, right? I don't think there's any quality issues with OCR. So tasks to do would be spin up a server. So I would say probably, Python Django with model/AI support. Implement a grammar checker. Keep using ER. And then for this, I would say, what was I going to say about that? Oh, C. And I would say, yeah, plenty of Python options. And then I would say then, build a better OCR engine. App should default to calling the API. Wait, so call it app behavior. If API not available, fallback to init GD extensions. It's really just one GD extension still, because we're not going to do the spelling one. Add user setting to disable remote calls. And then for this, we could say could have separate settings for grammar and OCR here. Could offer like let's call it like OpenAI API key option for OCRing that way. So that would be one thing if using AI. So if I ever decide to support an AI tool for doing OCR, I could still put that the control of it as well as the onus on the user. Hey, look, you can configure your API key and we'll use that instead. All this would improve things. And then the goal of the core app would be, like the core app, say, core app should always do decent enough OCR as fallback. Let's put that there. Oh, sorry. There we go. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. So the core app should always do a decent enough OCR as fallback. Technically that falls under here, but I'll leave it. I'll leave it down here as well as a reminder. So basically, the code I've written already is always going to be worth it. Even if I don't maintain that code, even if I don't improve it much, because maybe I can't, at least it should always be there as a fallback. Because I am in a place where I'm at like 95, 96% accuracy on OCR. And I'm trying to get to 99. And it's possible now that that's not going to be a thing I can do on the headset. I mean, I still might be able to figure it out, but this is not an option. Like, grammar spell checking is not going to work out for me. And I was kind of counting on that being available. I'm shocked that it's not. And then the thing is, by making this its own separate setting, having separate settings, the grammar thing could be lightweight enough that I could run that on a very lightweight server, maybe. I don't know. There are ML solutions for it, so maybe that actually is a heavier process than I am envisioning. And when I do finally ship this app, what I could do also is, if I ever decide, I could just not ship the GD extension with the code and then just keep that in my back pocket. And if I ever decide to not support, I always want it there. I feel like I do always want it there. I could hold it back for a bit. Again, just out of, not that it's a real concern, but out of slight worry that somebody could undercut my app. And if I've got a server, at least I have a way of causing problems for anybody who does that. Let's see here. Writing a wrapper that tokenizes text. Unspell can do that. Runs rule checks via lang tool. behind a small Python Flask service. Yeah, just a small little Python Flask service, no big deal. I mean, not a big deal for me, but for anybody else, if you've never done this before, yeah, just spin up a server and spin up an app that you're going to host in production and maintain the API interface and contract, and buy the domain to point to it, and then configure the network calls and handle authentication and, simple, small. Just happens to require ML infrastructure. So I keep hearing LangTool has a REST API. Grammar checker. Paste your text and start typing. Interesting. The free version corrects spelling as well as simple punctuation and some style mistakes. Nice. What is the, like... $250 calls per day for $50. Germany. But you're not making it clear to me. Like, what does premium offer? User management, team style, team dictionary, whatever. I mean, the pricing is not terrible. $70 a year, but I don't know if that is... Basic commas. So that's interesting. So the free version does have at least basic punctuation correction. Thanks for all the reply. See, okay, now that's saying that needs premium. You've got see, and this is the other thing I dislike about grammar though, is I don't want like what if it's a human readable sentence? Ah, see, this is why Semantics. Well, what about API? See, it doesn't say API here. It just has the proofreading API. Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's free for Firefox, but that means there has to be an API. It has to be maybe a shadow API. That means you might have to log in. You have to have a free account. Yeah, the other problem with spelling and grammar checking is, what do you do in a story where it's human language and there's intentionally bad grammar because you're writing with a person's accent and you're trying to illustrate that accent? So in these, I'd also want to like ignore and reject all corrections to that. Or again, have something smart enough that can fix it. So anyway, they have an API, but that would be an external dependency and an external fee. I'd rather self-host. Quick list of sources. Yeah, by the way, new spell, huh? Last year. Do you have better docs? You do have better docs. .5 times faster. Special casing rules. And then in July, there was a release. July a year ago. November the year before that. September the year before that. So about once a year there's been a release. And they're kind of overdue for one. Be very curious to see if there's a 2025 release. I mean, there's 2 releases here, but obviously one is, I mean, it's the next day, so obviously there's a hotfix. So that's general documentation, API docs. See, it's got better docs too. Already I can tell. So we got spell. It's a vector of standard string. General docs are saying what exactly? .17. I don't think that's a problem. I think I'm on 17. I'm not going to implement this just yet. If we do end up doing something in C++, consider using instead. New spell. Dictionaries, advanced topics. All right, that's fine. I could also say another option might be an API like, oops, costs money. I'm not as chatty today as I normally am. Cancel. Alright, so I'm listing that out. I mean, it's open source, so in theory I could host this myself and host my own API. Now, what is open source? Did they open source everything? Or did they open source... might be able to self-host, though. Depending on what they offer. I'm going to remove this. Keep it simple. All right, this research is going to take me up to my time on streaming today. So I'm not going to move on to anything else besides this. I'm just going to close this up, push the code, mothball the PR, and go from there. Was kind of hoping I'd have at least enough of a success that I'd be merging code today, but that didn't happen. Grammarly, Ginger, Sapling... Yeah, Python ML is probably the right path. And again, I can punt this down the road, and by the time I implement something, I'm sure there'll be even better ML tools, better AI tools that I can self-host for doing grammar checking. Yeah, okay, kill that, kill that. Let me just skim my search results here. Sea lion? What is sea lion? Sea lion? Is sea lion like a JetBrains thing? Plugin, which is bundled and enabled in sea lion by default. All right, I'm guessing they probably do something weird. All right, I surrender. I give up. Really, really annoying. Right then. I'm going to get rid of this dash here. For the heck of it, I will do a build all. While that's happening, one thing I'll do, since I got so many pull requests now, including several that have resulted in mothballing, I've got my labels here, right? Let me manage these finally. So I'm going to delete most of these, but let me add a label. So I'm going to do blocked. Cancel. Hold on, let me edit this one. Oh, let you do that? Okay. So we'll do blocked. I like blocked. That's a good one of mine. There we go. Blocked. Experimental. Do orange for that. Ready for review is one of my favorites. We'll add buggy will be yellow. And then a lot of these I'm going to delete. Help wanted, like there's nobody else working on this project. This is for like people raising issues on public repos. Everything's an enhancement. Duplicate, yeah, whatever. None of this is needed. I may keep bug for now, but okay. Let's do that. And now I can do like experimental. Do experimental on these. And now if I hit refresh, cool. I got some labels. And then I can properly categorize these so I can more easily see what do I need to come back to and what shouldn't I come back to. Git diff. So sad. Why did these things change? I'll probably check out main scene. I'm gonna mothball this as is. So let me just close Godot. So we got the spell checker. We have some things there. Right, I refactored all that, and that's it. I'm gonna check out testing harness, no. Test cases. Main. I think those were the two. Git, well, I'll add all files. Git add as construct. So I would say spell checking works. Doesn't help much. It's always annoying to feel like you've wasted time going down a path. Okay, so that's all pushed. Let me just code review. Okay, so I added some libraries, added a CPP path. I mean, this is also a good example of what it takes to bring in something new. Those files got deleted again, I guess. Okay. Let's see here. Some bin changes. Right. README for Hunspell for how to install it again if I ever need to. Game state got some things. OCR manager kind of did a little minor refactor, not a big deal. Now here we go. Bunch of source files. That's why there's like 48 file changes. And that's it. That's all it is. Because if I go all the way to the bottom here, yeah, it's all source files. So the real changes that mattered are all up here. And there aren't many of them. Okay. So where are we at then? I can switch over to music again. Kill those files. I'm not going to do anything with them. Unspell can go away. You can get closed too. I probably have too many things up. All right, so that's going to get closed. I'll close that for now. And then for these, let me just clean these up. So this is the composition layer, BB code text. I'm gonna add a label. It's like buggy. Oh, and you know what? I'll do do not merge. That's another one I like. All right, so that one's buggy. This one is this approach won't work unless we have good quality de-warping. I'll just do not merge. Stereo images. That's experimental. So experimental are things that I'm probably going to come back to at some point. Failing. Camera server extension on Godot 4.3. Backup so I don't lose changes. Probably can kill all those. So now if I refresh, yeah, spell checker is something I want to come back to. Godot 4.5 proper has bugs with it. It's buggy. Composition layer is buggy. Stereo images, okay. Good. This makes it a little easier for me to understand what's going on. So I'm going to throw this to the bottom here. In fact, I'll probably do status failed to implement. Spell checker works, but we really need grammar check, and there isn't a good option in C++ for that. I'll just plop that here. And then I'll do we probably need to self-host a solution. All right, so that's dead. Okay, so then what do I do? I think I'm not going to do the hosted API for now. I'm going to skip grammar checking and move on to something else that's going to move the needle. Music. Where do I have basic music? Do I have any music stuff over here? Let me bring that up. I probably want to do that sometime in the next bit of time. Okay, so I'll do basic sound. Basic background music. Delete, go away. Okay. All right, so this is what I'm going to work on. What I will do then is git checkout main. In fact, I'll do this real quick before I hop off for lunch, because this isn't going to take that much time. Git pull origin main just to be safe. I don't think there is anything. There shouldn't be. Git checkout -b basic background music. And then while I'm here, I might as well sneak this little change in. And I'll do a build all again. And then we'll launch Godot, and bring back music should be pretty easy. But as part of the basic music, I'm probably going to do a... Should I do that as part of this? I mean, whether I do it as part of this PR or a separate one, I may make this PR super tiny and then do a separate PR where I refactor, or I'll just do it all in one. But I'm going to move things out into its own scene so that I can start dynamically loading scenes based on what we want to show. So once this loads, whoa. Compilation failure. This could be Let me reload the project. I think that's because of the GD extension. Probably because it built Android first, and then it loaded in that GD extension, and then it didn't like what it saw. Maybe. Ah, that's weird. There we go. Still getting this. I guess they think it's because I don't know why this is, but Sky 3D just has like an issue with Godot 4.5, I think. Even this dev version of 4.5. All right, so I should be able to do audio stream player 3D. We should be able to rename it. To background music. If I click on that and we go to music and drop that in there, autoplay. Don't know if there's a loop available. But now if I hit save and just run this, it should be pretty loud too. Yeah, here we go. Okay, that is very loud. Stop. Okay, I was going to try to do it live, but volume dB. Let's drag this down, I don't know, -10. And let's try that again. Too much. Let's do -20, right? Because that should be like every 10 decibels is like a logarithmic scale, right? So it should be significantly quieter, I would think. Can we go crazy here? Like, is this not obviously quieter? Can't really hear it at all, which is good. So that's working. I'll go with -40 and leave that as is for now. And that might even just be the whole pull request right there. Git status -s, git add. Why do we have scene changes? Okay, main scene makes sense. Okay, I guess there is something going on with Skydome. Is there like a white space change on this line or something? Kind of weird. And then again, these changed somehow. Kind of odd. But fair enough. And then again, this gets all deleted from the controller. I don't know what the deal is with that, but... And we'll git add music. Git add OpenXR map. Basic background music. And if I go here, we should have our pull request now in a moment. Well, it's got to upload a file. That's going to take a moment. It's thinking, there we go. I keep thinking of new labels to add. we'll do in progress. And we'll make that like a blue one. Which basically means like I'm actively working on this. Not that I'm at risk of forgetting, but you know, sometimes you can put something on the back burner for a couple of days, go down a rabbit hole in something, and then when you finally finish it, trying to remember, hey, like, was I still trying to finish that off, or am I putting it on the back burner? Which I guess experimental is effectively that. All right, let me take a look at this. I may just do a basic code review. Yeah, if we run the test suite now. I'll probably drop that in. Sneaking this change in since a lot of books pages use the dash, especially to end a line of text before wrapping. Scores improved by roughly 0.25% with this change. I believe that's still true, right? Let's find out. Darn it. Control insert, not Control C. Maybe one day I'll fix that. Yeah, maybe not even 1/4, but yeah, we did improve slightly. Shaky leg, what's going on there? 92.96, 93, 3.6. Okay, I guess it's taking, that could just be like a minor performance thing. I mean, our average time is 6.3. Yeah, again, ran slightly slower. I suspect also because I'm streaming right now, so my machine's running a little hotter. Not a big deal. But yeah, now we're properly over 78, whereas before... Interesting that this is getting a 98. That's kind of impressive. And again, I think like some of these older tests will never score that good. So maybe I should stop using shaky as my experiment and use left and right. If I use left and right as my experiment, how does that look? Curious about that. And I forget what left and right is. Small paragraphs flip. Oh, sorry. That's going to be P96. So how does that look? Well, 97, P97. Isn't it? I'm confused. Oh, because there's some garbage in the middle here from the logs. Yeah, missing a trailing period. An extra S that should have a semicolon. Did I not have that in the... No, semicolon's there. It just didn't detect it. Yeah. Again, period instead of comma. So these are things that like a grammar checker would definitely potentially take this to 100% in this scenario. Others rushed. See, it says found. So what I would probably need to do, instead of going word by word, is I'd have to grab a whole sentence, what feels like a sentence. Which is interesting, right? If I did actual grammar checking, because I would need to, you know, this is actually supposed to be a period, but it doesn't end there. So I would probably need to do, I probably have to grab all of this because I don't see a period in there. Tonight, the Lord of the Eagles, like, yeah, there's just semicolons and commas. So I have to grab all of that. So I would grab all of this and pass it in to have to do grammar checking on the whole thing as a block. And then I would update all of those lines where possibly the only thing that we would fix would be like, this is a period. Cool. And then would probably then rerun from there. Or maybe this exclamation point would end it. Anyway, that's fine. Meeting place got a dash. Nice. So that's looking pretty great. I like it. So now I'll have to reflect on this and decide how much of this I'm going to do now versus, like, do I want to do a refactor right now? Do I want to dynamically, I mean, at a minimum, I probably should make this dynamic because right now I'm hard coding of MP3 here, but I probably need to make that controlled by logic. Yeah, go pull in some of the music that I purchased. Okay. All right, that's where I think I'll focus next, is just spend at least a day on music stuff and probably scene refactors and go from there. And then probably, let me add notes for myself here. So to do. Bring in basic background music. I don't know why I'm wrapping this like this. That's not correct. Test on headset. Tweak settings. Auto looping? Question mark. Got to make sure it does that. And then dynamically assign / load music file. Just like, can we do it? All right, can I just trigger based on a thing? You know, actually use day-night cycle to test this. Like, that would be the basic test. Like, load in, we should have some vanilla music loading in at start. Refactor. I'm going to say not this PR. Let's just not do it as part of this one. Because the one thing I want to start getting into... So the next thing I will do Just do very basic, but test support for dynamically changing the sound file. Actually, what I should be able to do is easily fade in, fade transition to new music. That will be interesting, because then what it maybe means is, right, like we have an audio stream player, and then what it might mean is we add a new one, and then we ramp up the volume on one while we ramp down the volume on the other over the course of 5 seconds. You know, just do a little transition there. And then when it goes to 0, remove it from the scene. So instead of doing this assignment like this, what it might mean is in GD script, instantiating a node instance, setting its music, adding it to the scene, defaulting its volume to like, I don't know, like, it's interesting that I have to go negative decibels. I would think that I could start at like 0 decibels and ramp it up from there, but whatever that needs to look like, do that. And then handle transitions that way, probably. And then I'm gonna add a new task here. So up next is going to be load scene for sentiment. And so for this, what I'm going to do is refactor current code to move sky ground to its own scene, and then dynamically load that scene in. And I think for that, no, this is all hand tracking. Did I have that here maybe? Oh yeah, here's the scene logic. Fine. So dynamically load the scene in. Add support for swapping scenes based on sentiment analysis of current page. So this is really just the dynamic piece. I don't need to have a specific task like that. So once I've got the refactor, then I can then start probably add a couple of new scenes. So then I'm doing like the sentiment analysis and swapping scenes based on the content of the book. And I think that's fairly important for what I'm trying to have ready in time for District Arcade. Simple spell check failed. Page tracking anchoring. All right, headset performance, I'm going to take a run at that. Godot 4.5, you're going on the back burner. Only OCR one page. I'll probably pull this in, why not? Title pages don't OCR, and I probably need to fix that. Yeah, I probably need this as well. A lot of these are simple. These are smaller things. And then bring in that strategy, which I'll probably try to do to put into a video. Can I get this here? Yeah, fine. Fresh look at text detection. Yeah, I'm not going to do any of that. Yeah, that's a cute idea, but I'm not going to do it. Headset quality of life improvements. Oh yeah, okay, let me pull that into. Again, I should do this better. I think I'm going to start treating this next column as more of like actually like things that could be next, and this is more of the, can I even rename this? Group status, whatever. This is basically an icebox now, like where ideas go to potentially die or just maybe eventually happen. All right, anyway, that's where I think I'm going to stop here. Thanks for whoever hung out with me for some brief time, and yeah, talk with you in the next one.